I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking, my chest tight like a vice. The photo stared back at me from my phone screen, her smile, the sunset, and him. She told me it was just a girls' trip. Just her, Megan, and Lacey. Sun, sand, margaritas. We need this, babe, she'd said, brushing her fingers across my jaw the night before her flight. No boys. Just us girls, I swear. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. We'd been together 4 years. Lived together for 2. I knew her morning routine, the way she hummed when she cooked, the exact angle she liked the bathroom mirror tilted. I knew her. Or I thought I did. But there he was. Shirtless. Tan. Muscled. Holding her waist like it belonged to him. The photo wasn't even hidden. Megan had posted it on her Instagram story. 30 seconds of carelessness that shattered everything. It was a boomerang. They were all laughing, clinking glasses by the beachside bar. And there she was, Jessica, sitting on his lap. I played it again. 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 At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe a misunderstanding. Maybe it was just a joke, right? She'd never do that. Not Jess. But deep down, something twisted in my gut. That same gut that had been uneasy since the day she booked the trip. Since the moment I noticed her texting more. Hiding her screen. Smiling at nothing. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I waited. I didn't call. Didn't message. I waited for her to come home. When she walked through the door 3 days later, she looked tan, radiant, carefree. She kissed me like nothing was wrong. Unpacked her bags while humming Lana Del Rey. She even brought me a souvenir, a cheap wooden turtle. I stared at it like it was a knife. I asked calmly, "Did you meet anyone on the trip?" She paused. Just for a second. That hesitation told me everything. "No," she said too quickly. "Why?" My heart sank. My jaw clenched. I pulled out my phone and showed her the video. And just like that, her face changed. Her smile evaporated. Like mist in sunlight, gone. Her face dropped, pale, eyes wide, lips parting but no words coming out. I watched the realization settle in like a stone hitting the bottom of a lake. She reached for the phone, but I pulled it back, not letting her touch it. That wasn't a request. That was confrontation. "I can explain," she finally muttered, her voice thin, almost breathless. "No," I said calmly but firmly. "You can't." For a moment, we just stood there. 2 strangers in the same apartment, in the same space we'd once called home. The air between us was thick, almost humid, with tension. She looked away, blinking fast. I knew she was trying to come up with a story, something clever, something that could make this all go away. But nothing came. "I didn't plan for it to happen," she said finally, the words slipping out like a confession she didn't want to give. "It was just one night." "One night?" I repeated, the words tasting like poison in my mouth. "You sat on his lap. You smiled for a camera. That doesn't happen by accident." She closed her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to mean anything." "Then why lie?" I asked, stepping closer. "Why say it was a girls' trip? Why hide it from me?" She didn't answer. And maybe that silence was louder than anything she could have said. I wanted to scream. To throw something. But instead, I sat down on the edge of the couch and put my face in my hands. The couch we'd picked out together. The place we'd sat watching movies, laughing, planning our future. Now it felt foreign. Contaminated. "I don't even know who you are," I whispered. Jess stood there, arms wrapped around herself, like she was cold. Like she wanted to shrink away from what she'd done. "It was stupid," she said. "I was drunk. It didn't mean anything. I didn't even get his number. But that didn't matter. Because it meant something to me. I gave her everything. My trust, my time, my loyalty. And she threw it away for a fling under the sun with some shirtless stranger who didn't even mean enough to remember his name. I looked up at her, and for the first time in years, I didn't see the woman I loved. I saw a stranger. A liar. "You broke something," I said quietly. "And I don't think it can be fixed." She didn't cry. That's what struck me the most. There were no tears, no begging, no desperate apologies. Just a numb, resigned look, like she knew this day was coming. Like part of her had already mourned the death of our relationship before I ever saw the video. Maybe that's what hurt the most. That I had spent the past few months loving someone who had already emotionally checked out, who had already given the most sacred parts of herself to someone else, even if it was just for a night. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, almost mechanically. Her voice was soft, but flat, as if she were reading from a script she'd prepared on the plane ride home. "It just happened. We were drinking, and it felt like freedom. I wasn't thinking about anything else." That word, freedom, echoed in my head like a slap. What did she need freedom from? From me? From our life together? From commitment? Loyalty? Decency? Was I some kind of prison to her? just a placeholder until something more exciting came along. I had never tried to control her. I never told her what to wear, who to talk to, where to go. I trusted her. I encouraged her to have time with her friends, to live her life. And she rewarded that trust with betrayal. Not even quiet, hidden betrayal, but sloppy, drunken, Instagram-exposed betrayal. I stood up, pacing the living room now, every step feeling heavier than the last. My head was buzzing, heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. The worst part? I still loved her. Even now, with everything shattered, I could still feel it. Like a bruise I didn't want to touch but couldn't ignore. That twisted, loyal part of me still hoped there was a version of this story where we could come back from it. But I knew better. You know what the worst part is? I asked, turning to her. It's not even the sex. It's not even him. It's that you lied so easily. That you looked me in the eye and told me it was just you and your girls. You planned this. You packed a suitcase full of secrets and flew to another state to live a version of yourself that didn't include me. She flinched. That finally got to her. I could see her swallow hard, her hands gripping each other tightly. But still no tears. No real remorse. Just guilt, maybe. Shame. But not regret. Not the kind that comes from loving someone you've hurt. I knew that kind. I felt it before. This wasn't it. I walked past her into the bedroom, opened the closet, pulled out the old duffel bag I used when I traveled for work. She followed me in, confused, hesitant. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice small. "Leaving," I said without turning around. "I need space, time, distance. I can't look at you right now without seeing him. Without seeing the version of you that chose a stranger over me." She stepped forward, reaching out, but stopped short of touching me. "Please don't go. We can talk about this. We can fix it." I zipped the bag shut and looked at her. Really looked. And for a second, I saw her the way I used to. The girl I fell in love with. The way her hair always fell to one side. The way her lips curved when she was nervous. But that girl didn't exist anymore. Or maybe she never did. "I don't think we can fix this, Jess," I said quietly. "Some things break too hard." I didn't sleep that night. I checked into a cheap hotel on the other side of town, the kind with flickering hallway lights and faded floral curtains. But it didn't matter. I wasn't looking for comfort. I just needed somewhere that didn't smell like her perfume. Somewhere I wouldn't accidentally run my hand over her pillow in the dark and forget, even for a second, that things were broken beyond repair. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, the hum of the air conditioner the only sound. My mind replayed everything, the last few months, the slow unraveling I tried to ignore. The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. She'd become distant. Her phone was always face down. She started going out more, laughing harder with her friends than she did with me. She said she was stressed, that she needed space. I gave it to her. I gave her everything: space, trust, love, time. And in return, she gave me lies. A beach romance she thought she could bury under tan lines and tequila shots. The next morning, I scrolled through old photos on my phone. Us at the lake last summer. Her in my hoodie, smiling with no makeup, holding a mug of coffee on our balcony. A video of her dancing in the kitchen, barefoot, wine drunk, singing off-key to Fleetwood Mac. I watched it again and again until my vision blurred. Not from tears, but from exhaustion and disbelief. How does someone change so completely? Or had I just been blind? I thought about calling her. Thought about hearing her voice, asking more questions, demanding more answers. But what would it change? The truth was already laid bare, raw and ugly. She'd chosen someone else. Maybe not for love, maybe not for keeps, but she chose him in that moment. She chose to betray me. You can't take that back. At noon, my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen. I stared at it, heart racing. I didn't answer. A minute later, a text came through. "Please just talk to me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I love you." Love. That word felt so hollow now. So contaminated. I typed, deleted, typed again. Finally, I sent, "If you loved me, it wouldn't have happened." She didn't respond after that. And I didn't reach out again. Instead, I sat in that crappy hotel room and let it sink in. I was no longer someone's person. No longer part of an us. The life we built, the memories we stacked like bricks, they were cracked now beyond repair. That night, I packed my things again. Not just the bag. Everything. I went home while she was at work and grabbed my stuff. I moved out. Quietly, quickly. I left the key on the counter and the wooden turtle on the bed. Let her stare at it the way I stared at that video. Confused, heartbroken, betrayed. The first few weeks after I left felt like walking through fog. My body moved. My mouth spoke when it had to. But my mind, it was somewhere else entirely. I go to work, sit through meetings, answer emails, but none of it felt real. Food didn't taste like anything. Music made me nauseous. Nights were the worst. Lying in a new bed, in a new place where nothing smelled familiar. The silence would swell until I could hear my heartbeat echoing in my ears. I'd wake up sweating, heart pounding, thinking I was still in our apartment, only to remember she wasn't mine anymore. Or maybe she never really was. Everyone kept asking what happened. Friends, coworkers, even my mom. I told them it was personal, that we'd split up. I didn't want to talk about it, because the truth, the real truth, was too humiliating to say out loud. That she had gone on vacation and come back with sand in her hair and someone else's touch still clinging to her skin. That while I was watering her plants, feeding her cat, texting her goodnight every evening like a fool, she was wrapped in another man's arms. There was one night I almost called her. I was drunk, sitting alone on the floor of my new apartment, surrounded by boxes I didn't have the strength to unpack. I had a bottle of bourbon I hadn't touched in months. I stared at my phone for 20 minutes. Her name was still in my favorites. My finger hovered over the screen. I wanted to hear her voice, just to feel something other than this crushing emptiness. But I didn't call, because deep down, I knew all she could offer me was more pain, more half-truths, more of that flat, distant tone she used when she didn't know how to lie anymore. And I deserved more than that, even if I didn't believe it yet. Instead, I scrolled through her social media. I shouldn't have, but I did. She'd deleted the story. Of course she had. But everything else, the smiling selfies, the cocktails, the sunsets, it was all still there. No trace of guilt. No hint of remorse. Just a perfectly curated vacation. Like nothing had happened. Like my heart hadn't shattered in the background of those filtered images. That's when it hit me. She wasn't suffering. She wasn't lying awake at night replaying our memories. She had moved on. Maybe she'd already moved on before she even left. Maybe the trip wasn't just an escape. Maybe it was her exit strategy. A way to test the waters of life without me. And when she found it warm and welcoming, she didn't bother looking back. I stopped looking after that. Unfollowed her. Deleted our photos. I even blocked her number. It felt brutal, final. Like slamming a door on a chapter of my life that I once believed would lead to forever. But it had to be done. Because as long as I left that door open, even a crack, the pain would keep seeping in like a slow, poisonous leak. And I was tired of bleeding. Healing isn't clean. It doesn't follow some neat, upward slope. It's jagged, chaotic, and cruel. Some mornings, I woke up thinking I was fine. Like the whole thing had just been a bad dream. I'd make coffee, take a shower, even hum a tune, and then I'd see a commercial with a beach, or hear a song we used to play during road trips, and suddenly the air would get thick and I'd feel like I was drowning all over again. I never expected grief to come from betrayal, but that's exactly what it was. Mourning the future I thought I had. Mourning a version of love that was never real to begin with. I started therapy. It felt weak at first, like admitting I wasn't strong enough to handle it on my own. But my therapist, a soft-spoken woman named Claire, helped me understand that strength isn't about pretending you're fine. It's about facing the pain head-on, not numbing it, not running from it. She asked me things I hadn't let myself think about, like why I stayed when the red flags started waving, why I gave her chance after chance to make me feel like a priority, why I mistook comfort for connection. We talked about trust, about how fragile it really is, how it's not just about not cheating. It's about presence, about truth, about making someone feel safe even when no one's watching. Jess broke that, not just with her body, but with her silence, with her choices, with the way she smiled in that video like I didn't exist. I also started journaling. Every night, I poured the mess in my head onto paper. I wrote letters I never planned to send. I wrote about the good times, too, not to torture myself, but to remind myself that they were real, even if the ending was ugly. Because it's too easy to rewrite history when you're hurt, to convince yourself it was all fake. But I needed to believe I hadn't wasted those years. That the love I gave meant something, even if it wasn't enough for her. And slowly, I started coming back to myself. I went to the gym again. I called up old friends I'd lost touch with during our relationship, people just never really liked. I took a weekend trip alone to the mountains. No distractions. Just me, silence, and the sound of my own breath echoing in the trees. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel like someone who'd been cheated on. I felt like a man beginning again. But even as I rebuilt, the scar remained. Not visible, not something anyone else could see, but I could feel it in the way I hesitated to trust, in the way I scanned people's eyes for hidden motives. Betrayal doesn't just leave you hurt. It leaves you changed. Harder, sharper. A little more cautious. A little less naive. Still, I held on to one thing. I survived it. And that counted for something. Time moved forward even if I didn't always feel ready for it. Months passed, seasons shifted, and life carried on. People around me got engaged, had babies, switched jobs. And slowly, the sting of her name dulled into something tolerable. Not painless, no, never painless, but manageable. The way a healed wound still aches when the weather changes. I could say her name out loud now without choking on it. I could talk about what happened without shaking. That felt like progress. Then, one evening, I ran into her. It was at a bar downtown, not our usual place, but close enough to bring back memories. I was there with some coworkers after a long week, nursing a drink, half listening to stories about office drama. And there she was, walking in with two friends. Her hair was shorter. She wore heels she would have once complained about. Her laugh, that laugh I used to know better than my own, echoed across the room like a trigger pulled too soon. She didn't see me at first. I had a few seconds to decide whether to stay or vanish. I stayed. Maybe out of pride. Maybe curiosity. Maybe just to prove to myself that she didn't own my peace anymore. Eventually, her eyes met mine. She froze just for a second and I saw it, that flicker of guilt or maybe surprise. She gave a small, hesitant wave. I nodded. That was it. No words. No drama. Just a nod between two people who once knew each other deeply and now shared only silence. Later that night, she sent a message. You look good. I hope you're doing okay. I stared at it for a long time. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could have replied. Could have asked how she was, what she was doing with her life. Part of me was still curious. Not because I wanted her back, God, no, but because I wanted to understand if she had changed, if she had grown, if she had learned anything from what she did to me. But I didn't answer. Because closure doesn't always come from conversations. Sometimes it comes from silence. From choosing not to reopen doors you've spent so long trying to close. From knowing that the past no longer holds power over you, not because it didn't matter, but because you finally learned to carry it without letting it crush you. Instead, I turned off my phone, paid my tab, and walked out into the night. The air was crisp, the city lights warm. I breathed in deep, letting it fill my lungs, and for once, I didn't feel haunted. That's when I realized I was free. In the months that followed, something inside me began to shift. I stopped checking over my shoulder. Stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. The bitterness that once clung to every memory of her slowly began to dissolve, not because I forgot what happened, but because I learned to carry it differently. Like a scar that used to throb every time it rained, now it simply existed. A part of my story, but not the whole of it. And in that quiet transformation, I began to understand something I'd resisted for so long. Forgiveness wasn't for her. It was for me. Forgiving her didn't mean excusing what she did. It didn't mean pretending it didn't gut me or rewrite the way I saw love. It meant letting go of the weight that I'd been dragging behind me like a chain. I forgave her because carrying that anger, that betrayal, was exhausting. I didn't want to live every day defined by someone else's choices. I wanted peace more than I wanted revenge. And so I gave it to myself. I started dating again, cautiously at first. Every smile from a new face felt foreign. Every compliment, every laugh shared over dinner came with a whisper of doubt. Could this be real? Could this one be safe? I was different now. Sharper around the edges. But I didn't apologize for it. I had earned those edges. They weren't armor anymore, they were reminders. Of who I had been. Of what I had survived. One night, I met someone who didn't ask me to explain the past. She didn't pry or press. She just listened gently when I offered pieces of the story on my own terms. Her name was Rachel. Her eyes were kind. She had a quiet strength, the kind that doesn't demand attention but commands it all the same. She didn't try to fix me. She just made space for me to exist exactly as I was. With her, I didn't feel like I was performing. I didn't feel like I had to prove my worth to be loved. And that terrified me, because after betrayal, kindness can feel suspicious. Intimacy can feel like a trap. But Rachel never rushed me. She understood that healing doesn't come with deadlines. That trust isn't a switch, but a slow, careful flame. One evening, as we sat on my balcony watching the city lights flicker beneath the night sky, she reached for my hand and said softly, "You don't have to tell me everything, but I want you to know, I see the strength in you, not just because you were hurt, but because you chose to keep going." That's when I realized, maybe the betrayal wasn't the end of me. Maybe it was the beginning of something truer, something deeper, something that could finally be mine. There's something surreal about looking back at the most painful moment of your life and realizing it no longer owns you. That it doesn't rise like bile in your throat when someone mentions her name. That it doesn't hijack your thoughts when you're alone with your silence. One day I caught myself smiling, really smiling, at something simple. A joke Rachel made. A breeze that felt just right. The smell of rain on warm concrete. And I realized I hadn't thought about Jess in days. Not with rage. Not with sorrow. Just not at all. She had become a chapter. A necessary one, perhaps, but no longer the defining narrative. I found myself wondering what she was doing now. If she had changed. If she regretted anything. But the truth is, it didn't matter. Her story had diverged from mine, and whatever path she walked now, it no longer concerned me. That realization was liberating in a way I hadn't expected. Not dramatic. Not euphoric. Just quiet peace. Like an old wound that finally stops itching. I still remembered everything, of course. The video. The look on her face when she was caught. The long, aching nights alone. But the pain no longer pulsed in those memories. They had softened like photographs left in the sun. Still visible but less sharp, less urgent. And in their place, something new had taken root. Something resilient. A sense of self that was no longer tied to who I had been with her. I wasn't the man who was cheated on anymore. I was the man who rebuilt. With Rachel, things were slower, more intentional. I didn't rush love this time. I didn't chase validation. I allowed things to unfold organically, without the fear of being left behind or replaced. And the beauty of that was in its simplicity. No drama, no games, just presence, mutual respect, honest, open communication. The kind of love that doesn't scream, it stays. We traveled together, and I realized I no longer feared beachside bars or sunsets. I no longer imagined ghosts of my past waiting in every shoreline. Instead, I created new memories, new laughter, new photographs. This time with eyes that saw me fully, not as a placeholder, not as a backup plan, but as someone worthy. I began to speak openly about my past, not out of bitterness, but from a place of strength. Because there's power in surviving something that tried to break you. There's clarity that comes from walking through fire and emerging not untouched, but forged. And sometimes, when I caught my reflection in a window or a mirror, I didn't see the man I was when she betrayed me. I saw someone better, wiser, still bruised in places maybe, but not bleeding, not broken, not anymore. Looking back now, I no longer see betrayal as the thing that broke me. I see it as the event that woke me up. It stripped away my illusions about love, about loyalty, about the version of myself I thought I had to be worthy of someone's heart. I had loved blindly, believing that love alone could hold everything together. But it can't. Love without truth is just decoration. Love without respect is just theater. And when the mask fell, and the truth stood naked and ugly in front of me, I finally understood. I was worth more than what I had accepted. There is no satisfaction in revenge. No peace in holding on to anger. Healing came only when I allowed myself to stop needing answers. Some people hurt you not because you weren't enough, but because they were never ready to be honest with themselves. Jess didn't cheat because I failed her. She cheated because she didn't have the courage to sit with discomfort, to face her unhappiness, or to communicate like a partner. That wasn't a reflection of my worth. That was a reflection of hers. And somewhere along the way I forgave myself too. For not seeing the signs. For loving her past the point of truth. For hoping when I should have walked away. I stopped blaming the man I was. He didn't know better. But now I do. And that wisdom earned through pain has become my quiet armor. Not something I show off, not something I use to keep people out, but something that reminds me of what I deserve and what I'll never tolerate again. Rachel and I are still together. Our love is quiet, steady, built on shared understanding and a kind of gentleness that feels revolutionary. She taught me that safety doesn't mean boredom. That passion can come without volatility. That real intimacy is built brick by brick with honesty and effort. I don't know where it's headed, none of us do. But I do know that this time I'm walking with open eyes, an open heart, and a self-worth that no longer wavers at the feet of someone else's validation. So if you're reading this still bleeding from someone else's betrayal, I want to tell you it won't always feel like this. One day the pain will stop being your whole world. One day you'll breathe again without the weight. You'll laugh and mean it. You'll look at yourself and see someone who walked through fire and didn't just survive but transformed. Because betrayal may break the old you. But the version that rises from the ashes? He's unstoppable.